Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here, and it's time for the YouOrns 10-minute take on Watford 2, Sunderland 2. Watford missing a very good opportunity to go into the international break with 3 points. Now, this is the game that they really needed to win against the Sunderland side, newly promoted from League One, who had a good outing last during the midweek against Reading, a 3-0 victory. They were very good in that game, and they were quite good in this one as well, Sunderland. In fact, I think Sunderland probably will walk away from this game feeling rather hard done by. The referee in the game was an absolute disgrace. Two penalties that Sunderland should have had. One should have had for Watford at least. I think Watford should have had that one penalty because there clearly was a handball, I think. But look, the point is that referee being bad or not, and he was, Sunderland should have won this game. Watford did not do enough in the game to prosper. Watford do not do well with prosperity. We've seen that this season. We've seen it last season. We've seen it over a number of seasons for the most part, with the exception of the 2020-21 season when Watford gained promotion from this very championship that they are now mired in at the moment. And Watford's opportunities in this game were few and far between in the first half. Sunderland outplayed Watford for a vast majority of the first half, but yet it was Watford that took the lead, I guess, in some ways against the run of play. A goal during a brilliant moment for Yasser Aspria, with a bit of technical excellence, as he has done in some of these games. A lovely cross diagonal pass that landed straight to really the feet of Hassan Kamara, who was on the left side today. He put a slide rule pass across the goal, and in came Keenan Davis, and making his Watford starting debut, scoring his first goal for the club, and basically putting it into an empty net. 1-0 Watford. But Watford from there did not go forward and did not keep pressing forward. They slowed down again, just like they had started the game, rather slowly, not moving the ball fast enough. I mean, they moved it quicker, but not quickly enough. Too much back passing, too much pausing, too much hesitating, not enough going forward. There was a lack of confidence in the play. The body language did not look intense enough, didn't look good enough, didn't look bright enough. And they reverted to that when they scored the goal. They were up 1-0 and they couldn't prosper off that goal. They went back into their shell. They retreated. They lacked confidence and lacked energy and bite. Didn't act as if they had something to hold on to. They wanted to give it away, it seemed. And because of that, Sunderland was able to grow into confidence and continue to play their game and get the goal that they wanted to get. Now, Sunderland, as I said, should have had a penalty before that. There was shouts for it, legitimate shouts for it. One of those penalty shouts was Hamza Chowdhury, who I don't know what he was doing, but clearly shoved down one of the Sunderland players. Referee was right in front of the play. I don't know how the referee did not whistle for the penalty, but he didn't. He didn't. And Sunderland then really felt aggrieved from that. But they did get their goal right at the stroke of half time, as Alessi scored a ball adjudged to have crossed the line completely. And the referee said that his watch had made that all important sound, the goal line technology, in the championship for the first time this season. And it was used in this game. Now, I think controversially so, because I've seen multiple replays now of the ball that supposedly completely crossed the line. And to me, it didn't look as if it did. Hamza Chowdhury with the clearance, and then at the time it was being cleared, it didn't seem like the entire ball went over the line. Now, in some replays, they showed you the goal line technology animation, and that animation clearly showed that there was daylight between the goal line and the ball in the back of the net. So if you take an example and look at that one, then the ball did cross the line fully and completely. But when I actually saw the replays of the game without that animation that they show you to see whether there's a goal or not, it looked very clear to me that the entire ball had not crossed the line. Now, the other argument is that if the ball did not cross the line completely, you would have expected to see Hamza Chowdhury make and kick up a big fuss and kick up a stink. But he didn't. He didn't. I did not see him do that. He did not make a big fuss about it to the referee. And I think he should have done. But obviously, maybe he didn't want to risk getting a card, whatever it was, but he didn't. If the ball didn't cross the line completely, Hamza Chowdhury didn't seem compelled enough to argue against the decision that was made by the referee's watch. So there you had it. 1-1 at halftime, unless he scored for Sunderland. And by the way, it was a deserved goal. However it came about, however you believe it went past the goal line completely or not, Sunderland deserved a goal in that first half for all their effort. And they got one, and that's the way they got it. halftime, it was 1-1. And then Watford started brightly in the second half, something that they don't do often in these games. In the first 10 games in the championship so far this season, is start brightly in these games, especially in the second half. If they do, they only start maybe for 5 or 10 minutes that way. But in this game, they started almost half of the second half on the front foot, dominant, created opportunities and chances, but it was the end product that just let them down a bit. Keenan Davis was one of the star attractions. He was the star attraction for Watford. He absolutely was involved in all the good things that Watford did, but it was some of the other players who just could not get their quality to tell at all, apart from Asprilla and occasional moments from Ken Sema and also from Hassan Kamara. Generally, most other players were not at it in this game for Watford. Watford, though, should have made their advantage reestablishment. They should have reestablished their advantage, sorry, in that game against Sunderland, but they didn't do that until around the 62nd minute or so when Luke O'Nien, the former Watford man, headed into his own net, and that gave Watford a 2-1 lead. It was a lead that Watford deserved, but again, the questions and the circumstances around which it came will always be there. But there was no question about the fact that there was no goal. It was just that Watford didn't do enough on their own to create the goal going forward. It was an error, and it was again an own goal by Luke O'Nien into the back of the Sunderland net that gave Watford the lead. Now, the question was, could Watford capitalize on that? And the answer was no, because about 10 minutes after that, Watford did what? They retreated. And then that's what got them into trouble. Sunderland spotted this, and Watford invited Sunderland on. Sunderland kept going tenaciously and doggedly, and they got a warning sign to Watford. They flashed a warning sign to Watford about maybe around the 75th minute or so, when Jack Clark, the Sunderland player, all alone in the box, turned and shot the ball past Daniel Bachmann into the back of the Watford net. Although the linesman said that Jack Clark was offside, and when you look at the replays, he was marginally offside. It was just a little bit offside, but that's all that counts. And Jack Clark offside, but the Watford defense was woeful. They left acres of space for Jack Clark to just stand there and park his stand, and he basically did that and passed the ball easily into the back of a net past Daniel Bachmann. But the offside flag was the big moment there. Watford got very lucky, but that proved to be a sneak preview of what would actually happen, because 5 to 10 minutes later, actually in the 87th minute, it was Bennett who scored for Sunderland to equalize. It was a similar play. Christian Kabasele had been brought onto the pitch, and within a minute and a half of his coming on the pitch, he absolutely made a shambles out of a corner that was crossed in. He tried to get the header. He jumped, mistimed his jump. The ball goes right past him and the Sunderland player and falls to an unmarked Sunderland player. And that was Bennett, who just smashed the ball home to make it 2-2. No chance for Bachmann in that particular scenario. And Sunderland got the points that they deserved. They got the point they deserved and should have probably gone on to win the game. There was a point blank range shot, and there was another shot that Bachmann had to save very well. And Sunderland otherwise should have won this game quite comfortably late on. Sunderland only ever looked like the team scoring in this game after that, and they did not, thankfully, for Watford's sake. And Watford really blew an opportunity yet again at home to do some damage, real damage, against a team who, again, just newly promoted from League One at the end of last season. And he could not capitalize, could Watford. 2 times they led, and twice Sunderland pegged them back. Watford's defense, we all know it's the stuff of legend, isn't it? Terrible defending once again. Christian Kabasele proving to be every bit the lightweight defender now in his later days. And it's a shame, because he was once a good defender for Watford, but that was not just once as in last night. It was once as in a long while ago now. Christian Kabasele just is not that same player anymore. And it just goes to show you the holes that we have in our defending, the lack of a squad that we have, very thin squad. And so that's what happened to Watford. And bringing on Kabasele was always going to be a risk. I know that you could have probably put on Sierralta instead. The matchups might have been a bit different, and maybe you would have played one of the defenders out of position, out of their comfort zone, because Kabasele would play more on the side that he played on, which I think would have been more on the left side, usually, or maybe on the right side. But the bottom line is, whichever side he played on, he was not going to be your safest pair of hands, at least as a defender, at least, although he's not going to be using his hands. He didn't use his head in that situation today, and that cost Watford dear because an unmarked man was allowed to just put the ball into the back of the net. Now, what you do is you always stay home on that on that attacker who's roaming the box and it has no one marking him. You see the player in front of you, and you know that that man's not being marked. You've got to stay with him. If the man in the middle of the box gets to the ball, you hopefully have some defenders behind you, closer to the goal, who can block and block any shot that comes in. But Christian Kabasele made the wrong gamble and did not get that header that he should have got. And after that, it was all Sunderland. And Sunderland, again, looked like the team that was going to go ahead and win the game and should have won the game, but did not. There were a couple of shots that Sunderland had, and the ball just went across the face of the Watford goal at least twice. One of them just skimmed the post or just missed the post. Otherwise, with Watford beaten and the goalkeeper well and truly beaten. So Sunderland really, I think, going to actually be the more disappointed of these two teams because they should have won this game. Watford, very, very fortunate to even get a point here. And it's just frustrating because the way this game unfolded was really not the actual tenor of the game as it was, because Sunderland were much brighter. They had better ideas about what they wanted to do. Watford, not confident. They looked tentative, hesitant. They looked afraid. They looked like they were playing not to make a mistake. And of course, when you play not to make mistakes, you end up making mistakes. And that's what happened to Watford. That's what hurt them today in this game. So it's not a game where I am disappointed. I'm frustrated because this kind of performance has been showing up over and over and over again. When Watford score first, as they did today for the first time in 6 games, they end up something like that, 6 or 7 games. They end up retreating into a shell. Now, you should never, ever do that, especially at home. When you score first, you should be going for a second goal, not looking to shut up shop. This is not parking a bus like Chelsea do. This is not the Premier League where you might get away with that if you are a good defensive outfit. But nobody does that at home. Surely not that early in a game. And Watford just looked to invite Sunderland on and on and on. And they paid for it eventually with a goal at the end of the first half. And they paid for it again with a goal very close to the end of the second half. So Watford now struggling, and struggling. 1 win in 7 now for Watford. And we go into the international break with some concerns. Lots of injuries. We had some more today in this game. One of the injured parties was Craig Cathcart. So our defending gets ever thinner as it is. The defense has been atrocious this season. The performances have been atrocious as well, except for maybe one, and that was the opening day game against Sheffield United. But other than that one, really, Watford have not put together 2 decent halves of football at any point in these following 9 games in the championship, and certainly not in the one game that they played against MK Dons in the Carabao Cup. So 2 weeks now for Watford to get back on their bikes and hopefully to get some injured bodies back. But the standouts for Watford today, I thought that particularly Keenan Davis showed you what he was made out of, but most of the rest of the players really didn't have a clue. And I thought Chowdhury and Kayembe were poor, very bad today, very poor today, terrible. I think Chowdhury's worst game in a Watford shirt, and Kayembe did not distinguish himself well, losing the ball in the middle of the park. Watford don't have enough personnel there. And I think Rob Edwards got some of the subs wrong today as well. They did not work the way I think he would have liked. And certainly Sunderland's subs came in and looked much more daring, much more ready. They had a hunger and an appetite for the game that Watford did not. And Watford at home should not be reverting to this, but they've been doing it for a long time now, and it's running really thin. This has been the YouOrns 10-minute take.